She smiled differently that day. Not the polite, rehearsed kind she gave the class, but something smaller, quieter, meant for no one, and somehow for me. I noticed at the moment she set the chalk down. It was as if the room itself paused with her. Professor Hale had a way of filling silence. Even when she wasn't speaking, the air seemed tuned to her, her stillness sharper than anyone's voice. That morning, the blinds were half drawn, slanting strips of sunlight across her desk, and the dust floated like slow-moving thoughts. She stood there, sleeve rolled to her elbow, wrist bare, a faint mark where a watch used to be. I'd seen her every week for almost a year, but something in her posture that day, a looseness, a kind of surrender, made me sit up straighter. She wasn't performing the lecture. She was somewhere else, and it made me want to follow. She looked up and caught me watching. Just a second too long. I dropped my eyes to my notes, pretended to write something. My pen didn't move. Her voice broke the silence, lower than usual. "You all look half asleep. Should I be worried it's me?" A few people laughed. I didn't. I could hear the smile in her voice, but I also heard something underneath it, a weight, like she was testing if she still knew how to sound light. When class ended, the others scattered quickly, the way students do when the bell rings and freedom calls louder than courtesy. I stayed behind under the excuse of a question I hadn't yet invented. She erased the board slowly, her back to me. Chalk dust clung to the black fabric of her skirt, fine white specks on the dark. I should have said something then, but the room felt too small for words. Finally, I managed, "You smiled differently today." Her hand froze mid-wipe. She turned halfway, not fully facing me. "Is that your academic observation for the week?" Her tone was dry, but her lips tilted just slightly, betraying her. "I noticed things," I said. "I can tell." She set the eraser down, brushed her hands together. The soft sound of chalk rubbing off her skin felt almost too intimate. "Careful with that. Not everything wants to be noticed." She moved to gather her books, and for a second, her fingers grazed mine on the desk. Not intentional, or maybe it was. The contact was brief, but full of static. Her perfume was faint, cedar, something warm beneath it. I caught myself inhaling too deeply. She noticed. "You're quiet today." I thought I was talking too much. Her laugh was soft, real this time. "You think too much, that's your problem." She said it like she knew me, like she'd been watching too. I wanted to say something back, something that would make her stay in that tone, that closeness, but all I managed was, "Maybe I learned it from you." Her eyes flicked up, a spark of surprise, then a look I couldn't read. She held it longer than she should have, long enough that it didn't feel like a joke anymore. Then someone knocked at the door. A voice, a colleague of hers, male, asking if she was coming to the meeting. She stepped back almost too quickly. "Duty calls," she said, gathering her things again, voice steady but hands just slightly unsteady. At the door, she paused, looked over her shoulder. The light hit her face at an angle, half in shadow. "Next week," she said, "maybe you'll teach me something for a change." And then she was gone, leaving the faint smell of chalk and cedar, and a question I couldn't stop replaying. Why did it sound like a promise? I told myself it was curiosity. That's how it always starts, right? You convince yourself you're just paying attention to her phrasing, to her teaching style, to the way she tucks a strand of hair behind her ear when she's thinking. Nothing wrong with that, except I kept noticing things that had nothing to do with literature. The next week, she called me into her office. Her space was quieter than the rest of the building, walls lined with books, faint smell of paper and peppermint tea. She motioned for me to sit, her hand brushing the chair back as I did. That light touch burned longer than it should have. "So," she began, flipping through a folder, "you've been consistent, but your last essay felt distracted. You're capable of more." I nodded, unsure whether she meant the paper or me. She looked at me then, really looked. "Is something going on?" Her tone was professional, but her eyes softened around the edges. I wanted to tell her everything, that I'd been staying up too late, thinking about her handwriting on my essays, that I didn't know why her approval mattered so much. But I said, "No, I'm fine." She waited a beat longer than she needed to. Then, softly, "You remind me of someone." "Who?" "A student. Years ago. Too much heart. Not enough armor." She smiled, but it was the kind that hides pain. He burned out early. The world got to him. I didn't know what to say. The air between us felt charged. Not romantic exactly, but aware. I caught the faint scar near her wrist again, the one from before, and wondered how many stories she kept to herself. She turned away, adjusting a stack of papers that didn't need adjusting. "You're young," she said, almost to herself. "You think everything worth feeling is worth acting on. It isn't." Something in me tightened. "You say that like you've tried." She met my eyes then. "I've lived long enough to know the cost." Silence. The hum of the old radiator filled the space between us. She sat down across from me, too close for comfort. Our knees almost touched. "You ever get lonely?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her gaze dropped to the mug in her hands. She took a slow sip before answering. "Everyone does. Some of us just learn not to show it." Her voice cracked on the last word, barely. She set the mug down, and for a moment, her fingers brushed mine. Not a full touch, just a slide of warmth before she pulled back. I could feel the absence of it immediately. Her eyes flicked up again, searching mine, as if to see if I'd caught that slip. I had. I wanted to reach across the desk. I didn't. Instead, I said, "Your tea's gone cold." She smiled faintly, not looking away. "So, it is." The clock ticked louder than it should have. Neither of us moved. The next time it happened, it wasn't planned. I was late, rain in my hair, sleeves damp, breath uneven, and she was already there, standing by the window of her office. The blinds were half closed, stripes of gray light across her face. She didn't turn when I came in. "You're soaked," she said. "Close the door before we both freeze." I did. The click of it sounded louder than it should have. She offered me a towel from her drawer, the kind meant for cleaning up spilled tea. I took it anyway, our fingers brushing for just a moment. "You don't need to stay," she said, voice softer now. "We can reschedule." "I don't mind." Her eyes lifted to mine, searching, cautious. She exhaled. "You shouldn't say that so easily." I wasn't sure if she meant it as a warning or a plea. She moved to her desk, trying to regain the usual order in her space, but everything felt different. The hum of the heater, the faint smell of rain on my jacket, her perfume now sharper in the warm air. I sat across from her, notebook open, pretending to review my essay draft. Neither of us looked at the pages. "About last time," she began. I tensed. "What about it?" Her hand hesitated midair, then lowered to the desk. "Nothing," she said quickly. "Forget it." But she didn't. Neither did I. The clock ticked again. A pen rolled. She caught it, fingers trembling slightly before setting it down too neatly. When she leaned forward to point something out on my paper, her sleeve brushed mine. My pulse jumped, stupidly obvious. She noticed. I saw her throat tighten. "Your heart," she murmured without meaning to. She stopped. I waited. She didn't finish. Her gaze lingered where her hand had been, inches from mine. For a second, she didn't move away. Then a knock. She jerked back, almost knocking her mug over. A student's voice filtered through the door. "Professor? You left your notebook in the lecture hall." Her breath caught. "1 second," she called. Then, to me, in a whisper, "Please." I nodded, closing my notebook fast. She stepped outside, and I could hear her steadying her tone through the wood of the door, casual, composed. When she came back, she stood still for a moment, hand on the doorknob, eyes closed. "That was close," I said quietly. She turned, her face unreadable. "It can't happen," she said, but her voice cracked halfway through. "I know. Do you?" I didn't answer. She took a step closer. Just one. Enough that I could feel the warmth of her body through the rain, still drying on mine. Her perfume, cedar, and something faintly citrus, cut through the air. Neither of us breathed for a second. Her hand lifted slightly, as if she might touch my face, then froze midair. "You should go." But she didn't move aside. I stepped forward instead, just a fraction, until our shadows merged on the wall. "Next time," I whispered. Her lips parted, maybe to protest, maybe not. "There can't be a next time." Her voice was barely sound, and yet she didn't open the door. The storm came first. Not outside. That one had already passed, but between us. We'd been pretending for weeks that nothing had changed. She'd hand me essays, I'd hand them back. Words exchanged like currency, not confessions. But something in her had gone restless, the way her sentences drifted mid-lecture, or how she'd stop herself from meeting my eyes too long. Then one night she called. No pretext. Just a quiet, "Can you come by? I need help with something." I shouldn't have gone. Her apartment was smaller than I'd imagined. Books stacked against the wall, an open window letting in the cool night air. She was barefoot, her hair down, the kind of unguarded you only see by accident. She gestured toward the table, papers scattered like she tried to work, but couldn't. I didn't mean, she started then stopped. I just didn't want to be alone tonight. Something in me cracked open. You could have said that. Her smile was small. I just did. We stood there, not moving, the city's noise a faint hum beneath the silence. She walked closer, reaching for one of the papers, but her hand trembled and brushed against mine instead. She didn't pull away. "Every time you look at me," she said, "I remember what it's like to be seen." I didn't answer. Couldn't. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then back up. The air between us felt electric, too much to breathe, too much to name. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. "What?" "Doing the right thing." Her laugh was quiet, bitter. "All the time." I reached out before I thought better of it, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. My fingers grazed her cheek. Her skin was warm, softer than I'd imagined. She closed her eyes, just for a second, like she'd forgotten how to be touched gently. When she opened them again, something had shifted. The distance we'd been guarding broke down to inches. "I keep trying to convince myself this isn't real," she whispered. "That it's just loneliness wearing your face." "Maybe it's both," I said. Her breath caught. We stood there, breathing the same air, close enough that I could feel the tremor in her chest, the uneven rhythm of restraint. "You shouldn't be here," she said again, but her hands were on my shoulders now. Not pushing, just resting. "Say the word," I murmured, "and I'll go." She looked at me, long, steady, haunted. I don't know what the right word is anymore. The next moment happened on instinct. Her leaning forward, me not moving back. Her hand slid to my jaw, her thumb barely touching my skin. The distance between us thinned to breath. And then, a phone buzzed. The sound shattered everything. She froze. The screen lit up with a name she didn't answer. Neither of us spoke. Her hand fell away, slowly, like she was setting something fragile down. "Maybe that's the world reminding us," she said, her voice breaking. "Reminding us of what? That wanting something doesn't mean you get to have it." But her eyes stayed on mine, unflinching, alive, like she didn't believe her own words. It happened 2 days after the storm. The real one, not the kind that ends in lightning, but in silence. She hadn't come to class. The department office said she was on leave. No explanation, no message, just absence. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, a conference, a family thing. But the way she'd looked at me before that phone buzzed kept replaying in my head, looping until it became unbearable. On the 3rd day, she texted, "Come by. Please." Not the office. Her apartment door was already unlocked. She was sitting at the table again, same place, same stack of papers, but this time she didn't look up when I entered. "You shouldn't have come," she said quietly. "You asked me to." She smiled without humor. "I shouldn't have done that either." I stepped closer. "What happened?" She took a slow breath, fingers tracing the edge of a mug that had long gone cold. "Someone saw us that night. My colleague. The one who knocked before." My stomach dropped. He didn't say anything, not yet, but he asked questions. She laughed softly, the kind of laugh that has no air in it. "You know what they say about rumor. You only need half a truth." I didn't know what to say. The walls seemed smaller, like the air itself was closing in. "I can fix it," I said. "I'll say I came for help, that it was don't." She stood then, abruptly. "Don't make yourself smaller for me." Her voice cracked. That was new. The control she always had gone. "I thought I was protecting you," she said, pacing now. "But maybe I was just protecting myself. The idea that I'm still the kind of person who knows where the line is." I moved closer, careful, like approaching something wounded. "And what if the line doesn't matter anymore?" She turned then, fast, her eyes glassy but fierce. "Don't say that. You're 24. You still think everything broken can be remade if you just care hard enough. Is that so wrong?" Her jaw tightened. It is when you start building your future out of someone else's ruin. Silence. Only her breathing, shallow and uneven. I reached out, my hand stopping just short of her shoulder. She didn't move, didn't tell me to stop. You're not ruined, I said. Then why do I feel like one? Her voice was barely above a whisper. She turned away, wiping at nothing on the counter, pretending her hands were busy. That's when I saw it. The paper on her table, a resignation letter half folded. You're quitting? I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. She faced me then, eyes wet but steady. No, it's already a story people will tell without knowing the ending. I'd rather write my own. I stepped forward until we were a breath apart. Then write it with me, I said. She didn't answer, but her hand found mine, slow, uncertain, desperate. The contact was small, but the tremor in her fingers said everything her words couldn't. And then she whispered, so close I could feel her breath on my skin. If I stay one more minute, I won't be able to stop. Neither of us moved. Not yet. She didn't move. Neither did I. The quiet between us had weight, like the air before thunder. Outside, the city kept on living, traffic murmuring, a siren far away. But in that small room, time folded down to breath and heartbeat. Her hand was still in mine, warm, trembling. She didn't pull back. Tell me to go, I said. She exhaled, eyes locked on mine. You won't. She was right. I took a step closer, our bodies almost touching now. The scent of her, cedar, rain, something faintly sweet, filled the space between words. This isn't about a mistake, I said softly. It's about you. Her lips parted just barely. Don't do that. What? Make me want to believe you. I wanted to say I already did, that I'd stopped caring what anyone thought weeks ago. But she was still fighting something bigger. Years of control, reputation, a life built on boundaries. I could see it in the way her shoulders squared against feeling. She looked up again, eyes wet but unflinching. You think this ends well? No, I admitted. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't begin. Her breath hitched, a small, broken sound. Then she stepped into me, slow, hesitant, until her forehead rested against my chest. I didn't move, afraid the moment would shatter if I breathed too hard. Her voice came muffled low. You make me feel like I'm still allowed to want things. I placed my hand gently at the back of her neck, thumb tracing the edge of her hairline. You are. She tilted her head up. Our eyes met, and for once, there was no fear left, just exhaustion and need tangled together. The distance closed to inches. Her fingers curled into my shirt. Mine slid to her waist. And then she stopped. I can't lose who I am for this, she whispered. I swallowed hard. Then don't lose it. Just let me know who you are. Her eyes searched mine, looking for something steady. Whatever she found there made her smile. Small, sad, real. You'll understand one day, she said. She leaned forward then, so close that her lips brushed my cheek. Not quite a kiss, but close enough that it felt like one. Close enough that the air itself trembled. Goodbye, she murmured. I didn't try to stop her this time. I just stood there as she stepped back, her hand slipping from mine slowly, reluctantly, like a thread unraveling between us. The door opened, spilling hallway light across the room. She looked at me one last time, the same way she had that first day, only now the smile was different again. Not guarded, not regretful, just seen, and then she was gone. The sound of the door closing wasn't loud. It was soft, final, almost kind. And for the first time, I realized maybe her lesson had never been in the book because it wasn't meant to be learned. It was meant to be felt. It was months before I saw her again. The semester had ended. Her name vanished from the schedule board outside the English department, and campus life folded over itself as if she'd never been there. But absence leaves its own kind of presence, like dust settling where something important used to stand. I carried her silence with me longer than I should have. In every lecture hall, every smell of chalk or paper, I found her shadow. Still, life didn't stop. I graduated, moved cities, tried to make sense of the world the way she taught us to, through details, tone, the unsaid. Then one afternoon, I saw her again. It was at a small bookstore near the river, the kind that smelled like rain and old bindings. She was standing by the window, reading the back of a paperback, her hair shorter now, her posture lighter. She looked different and exactly the same. I almost walked out, almost convinced myself it wasn't her. But she looked up, and that smile, the one from that first day, found me again. "Still noticing things?" she asked, voice soft, familiar. "Still pretending I don't," I said. She laughed quietly, the kind of sound that made the air feel warmer. We didn't talk about what happened. Not at first. We just walked down the river path, past the slow-moving boats, our steps falling into rhythm. There was no storm left, just the ache of something that had mattered, still did in quieter ways. "I read your essay," she said finally. "The one you published. You saw it." "I did." She smiled sideways. "You changed the ending." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I just learned the lesson." She stopped then, turning toward me. The late sun caught the lines at the corners of her eyes, and instead of hiding them, she let them show. "You're different," she said. "So are you." A pause, long enough for both of us to feel it. Then she reached out, hesitantly, like testing whether time had really passed. Her fingers brushed mine, then stayed. It wasn't the touch of someone claiming anything. It was a quiet acknowledgement of what had been, what still was, and what didn't need to be named. "Maybe we were never wrong," I said. "Maybe we were just early," she whispered. We stood like that for a while, her hand small but certain in mine, the sound of the river filling the silence. She leaned her head gently against my shoulder, and the world, for once, didn't feel like it was waiting for us to explain ourselves. No grand declarations. No final lesson. Just two people, older now, still learning how to stay open to feeling. When we finally walked back toward the street, her hand stayed in mine, not out of fear but ease. And her smile, again, was different. Not forbidden. Not hesitant. Just real. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?